dwarfs, is out of character, is much larger than the existing homes in the area. And as you can see from, I'm going to show you just a series of photos where what was really happening is you had 2 to 2.5 story homes appearing in neighborhoods where the pattern was 1 story or 1.5, and the homes were usually much larger. So you can see throughout the town we were seeing these 2.5 story homes up against 1 story, and a lot of people felt it was changing the character of their neighborhood. Just a couple more to sort of cycle through where you can see the impact. These two are the one on the left is particularly good at showing sort of the ranch next to the 2.5 story colonial type house. So out of that came the motivation for an ordinance amendment to deal with some of the homes that were out of character. We received a lot of comments about garages being out front or garages being the dominant feature, concerns about paved lawn and mature trees relating both to the removal of that and the size of the house or the regrading of the house. And finally that, as I indicated, the homes were much larger than the neighboring homes. Our consultant shared this slide at, I think, almost all of the focus groups, and I thought it would be useful to share with the full board. And on the left is a home, typical home from 1973, and on the right, a typical home for 2014. And what they found, and these are national numbers, was that in 1973, the average house size was around 1,600 square feet. And in 2014, that average house size is now just a little over 2,600 square feet. The average household size has decreased slightly. The square foot per person in that house has increased dramatically, almost doubling to 1,046. There are now more 4 bedrooms. In 73, only 23% of the homes being built had 4 bedrooms. In 2014, 46%. The number of bathrooms has also increased with more than 2% in 73, where only 19%, and more than 2 bathrooms are now 66%. And similar numbers for a 2-car garage, 39% of the homes had it in 73, and 85% had it in 2014. So even nationally, it shows that the homes are larger. If you recall just the pictures I had up, a lot of those homes were probably circa 73 or even older, so that they were smaller homes, and the demand seems to be bigger and bigger homes. We also asked the consultant, and this is a slide that they presented at some of the various meetings, and I thought it's useful information to sort of set the tone. This map shows you each dot represents a home demolition between 2005 and 2015. There were a total of 213 homes that were demolished during that time period, and what the 2 circles are showing you is that there's a large cluster on the right where most of those homes that were being demolished were in the smaller lot area zones. So they were a half acre or less, and you'll see as we go into the ordinance and if we continue into the study area, most of the smaller lots are what's affected. That as you got further and further out into the township, you'll see there's a scattering of homes that were demolished, but the issues were not the same. When you get an acre of land or 3 acres of land, the size of the house was not a problem. They're not in as close. They're not directly affecting their neighborhood. There was also a small but significant cluster in the Edgarstone neighborhood off to the south part of the community. In addition to looking at demolitions, the consultant also plotted single-family home additions by size, and you can see that the scatter of these homes is such that they also mirror to a large extent where the demolitions were occurring. There were 355 additions that we tracked, and I just want to share with you 169 of the homes had it placed an addition of 500 to 1,000 square feet on their home. 110 of the homes had 1,001 square feet to 2,000 square foot addition, so in some cases almost doubling the size of the home that was on the lot. And then 76 of them had an addition greater than 2,000. So we're seeing a lot of additions as well in the same part of the neighborhood. And that's a total of 355. To understand some of the numbers, the 2015 American Family Census status indicates that there are approximately 7,762 one- and two-family units in the Princeton community. So when you combine the additions with the tear-downs, we're getting close to 7 to 10% range in terms of the number of homes that are being affected. Not a huge number, but a significant number, I think. So planning ahead, what we're going to talk about in a moment is some changes to building form. And the ordinance will address car first, garage locations. It'll look at prevailing front setback. It will also look at floor area, cathedral ceiling space. And then there was a lot of discussion on porches and the importance of porches. And we'll talk a little bit about them and sort of making our zoning more friendly, or our pro-porch rules. In the future, there will be updates to the land use element of the master plan. There may be specific design guidelines. We will be outlining the potential regulatory approaches on bulk control, some more zoning amendments as we build consensus on the various ones. We will look at whether or not we want to do some sort of form-based code. The study will keep going and look at permitting review and the oversight process, and then some economic strategies as well. As part of the consultants charged, they will be looking at the economics of the tear-down phenomena and why some of that is occurring. There is some information on the webpage, the Neighborhood Character and Zoning Initiative webpage as well. But we'll be coming back to you with a draft report, hopefully early next year, that begins to outline some of these things. So with that, I'd like to turn to what the ordinance does, and as I said, there were 4 items that we were trying to address, and what I'd like to do is just share with you some pictures as we talk about it. But again, we're going to be dealing with prevailing front setback, porches, garages, and then cathedral space as it affects floor area ratio. So Section 1 of the ordinance amends the Township Code to require the use of a prevailing front setback for lots that are half acre or less. So where it's going to apply is in the R5, 6, 7, and 8, 9 zones. Those are all residential zones that require less than a half acre or less of land. In all of those zones, there's currently a 25-foot front setback. And then I'll talk about Section 4 in the ordinance when we get to it, but that provides the calculations. So the pictures that I've chosen, as you can see on the left, here's a house. It couldn't use prevailing front setback. It meets the 25-foot setback, and as you can see, the house immediately next to it is up much closer, and this is what prevailing front setback would get at. The photograph on the right shows you a fairly typical streetscape in what we're trying to do, so that when the front setback is too large or if it's too small, what we're trying to do is preserve some streetscape and get some uniformity in there. Here's an example under construction where the applicant actually did come and get a variance, but it's still set back. It still took them more time, and again, you can see this time on the right is where the new home is being built, set back a little further as opposed to the prevailing, and on the left shows you going down the street again what the prevailing would look like. And again, just the same picture. I'll come back to that in a minute. So that's why we're looking at doing the prevailing front setback. Section 2 of the ordinance creates a new residential design regulations in the former borough and township land use code. This would permit porches to encroach into the front yard setback, and it says that it can do that a maximum of 8 feet, provided the porch does not exceed 200 square feet, or that's an 8 by 25 foot wide porch, so it's a substantial porch. The majority of the structures on the block must also have porches, so you can't just be the only house and say, I want to put a porch and have it encroach. It's really to allow, as you saw from some of the earliest slides, and I'll show you a few more, many of our neighborhoods have porches